Well, the saturated fat story has been very prevalent in the media lately because it's really been the cornerstone of our dietary guidelines in the sense that we've advocated for lowering saturated fat and been telling people for almost 4 decades now to reduce the saturated fat in their diet with the intention to reduce risk for obesity and diabetes and heart disease. However, recent evidence has clearly indicated that there's no association between dietary saturated fat and risk for heart disease or diabetes. And so we're rethinking this whole paradigm around saturated fat, and we've done some of the seminal work in our laboratory that has linked the effects of saturated fat to the amount of carbohydrate in your diet. And what's really important to understand is it's not so much the dietary saturated fat that we need to be concerned with. It's whether or not you're accumulating saturated fat in your body, in your membranes, and in your arteries. Because if you do, that is associated with risk for heart disease. And it turns out dietary saturated fat has little to do with how much saturated fat we store. It's actually the carbohydrate in our diet that's contributing to synthesis of saturated fat in the body as well as storage and accumulation of saturated fat. So if you overconsume carbs, then you put your body into a metabolic state where you're more likely to store the saturated fat. So it's really a story more about carbohydrate than it is about saturated fat in the diet.